The conference room smells like stale coffee and expensive leather. I sit across from Rachel Martinez, my college roommate turned divorce attorney, watching her review the evidence spread across the mahogany table. Bank statements, email printouts, surveillance photos, a small recording device that holds the truth of everything. Monica, Rachel says, looking up at me with those sharp brown eyes that made her so good at her job. When we go into that settlement hearing next week, Bruce's attorney is going to try to paint you as vindictive, maybe even unstable. You need to be prepared for that. I nod, my hand steady around the paper cup of water she'd given me 20 minutes ago. I haven't taken a sip. I'm ready. Good. She leans back in her chair. But first, I need you to tell me the whole story, from the beginning, for the record. So I do. I tell her about the dinner, about the Japanese, about the 18 months I'd spent becoming fluent in a language my husband didn't know I spoke, and about the night I heard him say things about me he thought I'd never understand. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Monica Adams, and 2 years ago, I thought I had a decent marriage. Not perfect. We weren't those couples who posted anniversary tributes on social media or held hands at dinner parties. But decent, functional, good enough. I was 35. Bruce was 40. We'd been married for 10 years, together for 12. We lived in a 3-bedroom townhouse in Mountain View, with a 2-car garage and a postage stamp backyard where nothing grew properly because of the shade from our neighbor's oak tree. Bruce worked as a senior VP at a tech company in the Bay Area, managing a team of over 200 people. I was a marketing manager at a mid-sized firm in Sunnyvale. My job wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. I'd built campaigns that actually moved the needle, developed client relationships that lasted years. From the outside, we probably looked like we had it figured out. Good jobs, nice house, annual vacation to Hawaii or Mexico, the kind of comfortable California life that people move here hoping to achieve. But somewhere along the way, and I couldn't tell you exactly when, things had shifted. Maybe it was when Bruce got promoted to senior VP 3 years ago. Maybe it was gradual, so slow I didn't notice until I was already living in a different marriage than the one I thought I had. Bruce became busier, more important, at least according to him. He worked late, traveled for conferences, spent weekends in his home office with the door closed. When he was home, he was either on his phone or too tired to talk. Our conversations became transactional exchanges about household logistics. Did you schedule the yard service? The HOA sent another notice about the paint color. I have dinner with the Hendersons on Saturday. You're coming, right? I told myself this was normal. This was what happened after a decade of marriage. The passion fades, the routine sets in, and you just make it work. Everyone said so. My mother had said so when I'd mentioned feeling disconnected. Marriage is work, honey. You can't expect fireworks forever. So I pushed down the lonely feeling that crept in during quiet evenings when Bruce locked himself in his office and I sat in the living room, scrolling through Netflix without watching anything, wondering when we'd stop being a couple and started being roommates who occasionally had obligatory sex. Our sex life had dwindled from 2 or 3 times a week to maybe once a month, and even that felt perfunctory. Bruce would roll over on a Sunday morning, kiss my shoulder, and I'd know what he wanted. 15 minutes later, it would be done. And he'd head to the shower while I stared at the ceiling, feeling emptier than before. But the thing that really hurt, the thing I didn't want to admit, even to myself, was how small he made me feel. 3 years ago, I'd mentioned wanting to take a photography class. I'd always loved taking pictures, had a decent eye for composition. I thought maybe I could develop it into something more. Bruce had laughed. Not cruelly, but dismissively, in that way that made me feel foolish for even asking. Sarah, you take pictures with your iPhone like everyone else. You don't need a class for that. Besides, when would you even have time? I'd let it drop. And after that, I learned to keep my interests quiet. It was easier than defending them, easier than seeing that look on his face that said, "Why are you trying to be more than you are?" Then, about 18 months before the dinner that changed everything, I stumbled onto something that gave me back a piece of myself I had forgotten existed. It was a Tuesday night around 11. Bruce was already asleep, snoring softly beside me, exhausted from another 12-hour day. I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, scrolling mindlessly through my phone when an ad popped up for a language learning app. Learn Japanese in just 10 minutes a day. I almost scrolled past it. But something made me stop. Japanese. I'd taken it in college, a full minor in Japanese studies at UC Berkeley. I'd loved everything about it. The complexity of the writing system, the elegant grammar, the way it opened up an entirely different way of thinking about the world. I'd even spent 6 months as an exchange student in Tokyo during my senior year, living with a host family in Setagaya, riding the trains to Waseda University, eating convenience store onigiri for lunch. Those 6 months had been some of the best of my life. I'd felt adventurous, capable, independent. I dreamed about moving back to Japan after graduation, maybe working for a Japanese company, building a life that felt bigger than the one I'd grown up with in suburban Sacramento. Then I met Bruce in the spring of my senior year. He was getting his MBA at Stanford, visiting Berkeley for a friend's party. He was confident, ambitious, 7 years older than me. He pursued me relentlessly. Flowers, dinner at nice restaurants, weekend trips to Napa. He made me feel special, chosen. When I mentioned my Japan plans, he'd smiled and said, "That's a nice dream, Mon, but be practical. You need to build a career here first. Establish yourself. You can always visit Japan on vacation." His confidence had been seductive. He seemed to know how the world worked in a way I didn't. So I'd filed away my Japan dreams in the mental drawer labeled "Impractical Interests from Your Youth" and taken a marketing coordinator job in San Jose. We got married 2 years later. I hadn't thought about Japan in years. But that night, lying in bed while my husband slept, I downloaded the app, just out of curiosity, just to see if I remembered anything. I remembered more than I expected. The hiragana came back immediately, aiweo, like muscle memory, then the katakana. Within the first lesson, I was hooked. It felt like finding a part of myself I'd lost, a version of Monica who had wanted more, who had been brave enough to imagine a different life. Every evening after that, while Bruce worked late or watched his financial news channels, I would sit at the kitchen table with my earbuds in, working through lessons. I subscribed to Japanese Pod 101, started watching Japanese dramas with subtitles, then, gradually, without them. I didn't tell Bruce, not because I was hiding it exactly, but because I'd learned not to share things he would dismiss. The photography class had taught me that. This was mine, my secret world where I could be someone more than just Bruce's wife. And I was good at it, really good. Within 6 months, I'd progressed beyond the app and found a private tutor. Dr. Sarah Kim taught Japanese at Stanford's Continuing Studies program. I'd found her through a Google search for Japanese Tutor Bay Area and sent her an email on a whim. Dear Dr. Kim, my name is Monica Adams. I'm interested in private Japanese tutoring. I studied Japanese in college, UC Berkeley, class of 2012, including a semester abroad in Tokyo, but I haven't used it in years. I'd like to become conversationally fluent again. Would you be available? Her response came 3 days later. I don't typically do private tutoring. My schedule is quite full with university teaching. I wrote back immediately. I understand, but I'm highly motivated and willing to work around your schedule. I can meet evenings or weekends, whatever works for you. I'm serious about this. 3 more emails later, she agreed to meet me for coffee to assess my level. We met at a Phil's Coffee in Palo Alto on a Saturday morning while Bruce played golf with clients. Dr. Kim was 45, Korean American, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a neat bun. She had the direct, no-nonsense manner of someone who doesn't waste time on students who aren't serious. We spoke in Japanese for 15 minutes. She asked me about my background, my goals, why I wanted to relearn the language. I answered as best I could, stumbling over vocabulary I'd forgotten, my grammar rusty but present. Finally, she switched back to English. Your foundation is good. You clearly have the aptitude. But Monica, can I be direct with you? Please. Why are you doing this? You're what, 35? Married, established career? Japanese is a difficult language to master. It takes years of consistent practice. Most adults who want to relearn a language do it for a few months. Then life gets in the way and they quit. I don't want to invest my time in someone who's going to give up when it gets hard. I looked down at my coffee cup, watching the steam rise. How could I explain it to her? That I needed this. That learning Japanese was the only thing that made me feel like myself anymore. That I was disappearing in my own life, and this was the only thread connecting me to the person I used to be. I won't quit, I said quietly. This is the first thing in years that's made me feel like I matter. Something shifted in her expression. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Tuesday evenings, 7 to 8:30. My office at Stanford. $80 an hour. Come prepared, do the homework I assign, and don't waste my time. I won't. I didn't. For the next 2 years, every Tuesday evening, I told Bruce I had a book club. He never asked which book we were reading. I doubt he would have listened if I'd told him. Dr. Kim was a demanding teacher, but brilliant. She didn't just teach me vocabulary and grammar. She taught me how Japanese people actually spoke, the subtle differences in register and politeness, the business language you'd use in a corporate setting versus casual speech with friends. I supplemented our lessons with everything I could find. Podcasts during my commute, Japanese dramas in the evening, online conversation exchange with tutors on italki. I scheduled sessions for my lunch breaks at work, sitting in my parked car with my laptop, speaking Japanese with teachers in Tokyo and Osaka. By the end of the first year, I could understand most conversations. By 18 months, I was nearly fluent. Dr. Kim started assigning me Japanese business articles to read, taught me the formal keigo expressions used in corporate settings. You're one of my best students, she told me once. you have the discipline most people lack. Whatever is driving you, it's working. What was driving me was simple. Every new word I learned, every grammar pattern I mastered felt like proof that I was still capable of growth. Still someone beyond just Bruce's wife. Still Monica, the girl who'd spent 6 months in Tokyo and felt truly alive for the first time. Meanwhile, my marriage continued its slow collapse. Bruce got promoted again in month 14 of my Japanese studies. Senior vice president with 200 direct reports and a salary that jumped to $250,000. He traveled more, quarterly trips to Asia for business development. He'd come home with jet lag and work stories I didn't really understand because he never explained them in a way that wasn't condescending. The Tokyo office is expanding, he'd say over dinner. I've been picking up some Japanese from working with them. It's actually not that hard once you understand the patterns. I'd nod, cutting my chicken, biting back the urge to correct his pronunciation when he butchered simple phrases like arigato gozaimasu. His Japanese was intermediate at best, I could tell. Serviceable for business meetings, but far from fluent. He didn't ask if I spoke Japanese. Why would he? In his mind, I was just his wife who worked in marketing at a small company. A job he'd started referring to when talking to his colleagues as my little marketing thing. I knew because I'd overheard him once on a phone call with his boss, laughing about something. No, Monica doesn't mind the travel. She's busy with her little marketing thing anyway. Keeps her occupied. Keeps her occupied, like I was a child who needed activities to pass the time. Around month 20 of my studies, Rachel reached out on LinkedIn. We'd been roommates at Berkeley, best friends sophomore through senior year. After graduation, we drifted apart. She'd gone to law school at UCLA. I'd stayed in the Bay Area with Bruce. We'd exchanged Christmas cards for a few years, but that had faded too. Her message was simple. Hey, stranger, I'm back in the Bay Area. Just made partner at a family law firm in San Francisco. Would love to grab coffee and catch up. Been too long. We met at a coffee shop in Redwood City, halfway between our offices. Rachel looked exactly like I remembered. Curly dark hair, sharp eyes, that quick laugh. But there was a hardness to her now too, a knowingness. I got divorced 5 years ago, she told me over lattes. Married my law school boyfriend right after graduation. Biggest mistake of my life. He was controlling, dismissive, made me feel small, took me 7 years to leave. I'm sorry, I said automatically. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. It's why I went into family law. I help women who waited too long to see the truth. Women who made themselves small for men who didn't deserve them. Something in my chest tightened. I changed the subject quickly, asked about her firm, her cases, anything but marriage. But driving home that day, her words echoed. Women who made themselves small for men who didn't deserve them. Was that me? No, I told myself. Bruce wasn't controlling. He was just busy, ambitious. And I was fine. Everything was fine. Except it wasn't. I'd lost 12 pounds over the past year without trying. I had trouble sleeping. Work felt like going through the motions. The only thing that made me feel alive was Japanese. Those 90 minutes with Dr. Kim, the hour of practice every evening, the stolen lunch breaks speaking with tutors in Tokyo. Japanese had become my lifeline. and I was terrified of what that said about my life. Then, on a late September evening, Bruce came home early for the first time in months. Actually early, 6:30 instead of his usual 8 or 9. And he was excited, energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. Monica! He walked into the kitchen where I was chopping vegetables for dinner, loosening his tie. Great news. I looked up. What's that? We're finalizing a huge partnership with a Japanese tech company, Tech Fusion Japan. This could be massive for us. We're talking potential $50 million deal. That's wonderful, honey. The CEO, Tanaka Hiroshi, is visiting California next week. I'm taking him to dinner at Hashiri in San Francisco, Thursday at 7. He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a beer. You'll need to come. I set down my knife. To a business dinner? Yeah. Tanaka specifically asked if I was married. Japanese business culture, they like to know you're stable, family-oriented, good optics. He twisted off the cap, took a long drink. You'll just need to look nice, smile, be charming. You know, the usual. Something about the way he said the usual rankled me, like being charming and quiet was my designated role, the only value I brought to his professional life. Sure, of course, I said evenly. When? Next Thursday, 7 p.m. Wear that navy dress, the one with the sleeves, conservative but elegant. He leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. Oh, and Monica? Yeah? Tanaka doesn't speak much English. I'll be doing most of the talking in Japanese. He said it casually, proudly. You'll probably be pretty bored, but just smile through it, okay? My heart skipped a beat. My hands, still holding the knife, went very still. You speak Japanese? I kept my voice neutral, curious. Picked it up working with the Tokyo office over the years. I'm pretty fluent now. There was unmistakable pride in his voice. It's one of the reasons they're considering me for the executive VP position. Not many executives here can negotiate in Japanese. He didn't ask if I spoke it. Didn't wonder if I might have any interest or knowledge. Why would he? In his mind, I was just the wife who would smile and look pretty while the important people talked. I turned back to the cutting board, my mind racing. That sounds wonderful, honey. I'll be there. After he left the room, I stood at the counter, knife in hand, staring at the half-chopped vegetables. An opportunity had just fallen into my lap. A chance to hear how Bruce really spoke when he thought I couldn't understand. How he presented himself. How he talked about our marriage, our life, about me. Part of me felt guilty even thinking this way. But a bigger part, the part that had spent 2 years secretly becoming fluent in Japanese, the part that felt increasingly invisible in my own marriage, needed to know. I needed to know who my husband really was when he thought no one was listening. I pulled out my phone and texted Docker. Kim, emergency session this week. I need to review business Japanese ASAP. Her response came 5 minutes later. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Bring your A game. The week crawled by. I spent every spare moment reviewing formal business Japanese, practicing polite speech patterns, making sure I'd be able to follow a professional conversation flawlessly. Dr. Kim drilled me on vocabulary, on the subtle differences between casual and business speech, on how to keep my face neutral no matter what I heard. Why the sudden urgency? She asked during one session. I might have an opportunity to use it professionally, I said. It wasn't exactly a lie. Thursday arrived. I wore the navy dress as requested, paired it with modest heels and simple pearl earrings that had been my grandmother's. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror in our bedroom and saw exactly what Bruce wanted, a presentable wife who wouldn't embarrass him in front of important clients. The woman staring back at me looked polished and professional. She also looked like a stranger. Bruce appeared in the doorway, adjusting his cufflinks. "You look good. Perfect for tonight." Perfect. Not beautiful, not stunning. Perfect. Like I'd successfully completed an assignment. "Thanks," I said, grabbing my clutch. The drive to San Francisco took 45 minutes in Thursday evening traffic. Bruce spent most of it on the phone, talking to someone named Jennifer about Q4 projections. His voice had an ease to it, an engagement I hadn't heard when he spoke to me in months. I stared out the window at brake lights and tried to calm my racing heart. Hashiri was in the financial district, all clean lines and minimalist Japanese aesthetic. The kind of restaurant that required reservations months in advance unless you had corporate connections. Bruce had used the company account to secure a table. We arrived 15 minutes early. Bruce checked his appearance in his phone camera, straightened his already perfect tie. "Remember," he said as we walked toward the entrance, "just be pleasant. Don't try to participate in the business talk. If Tanaka addresses you in English, keep your answers brief. We need him focused on the partnership, not distracted by small talk." I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. Bruce opened the door for me, one of the few gentlemanly gestures he still maintained for appearances. Tanaka Hiroshi was already seated at a corner table when we arrived. He stood to greet us, a man in his mid-50s with silver-rimmed glasses and an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Everything about him spoke of quiet authority and old money. "Adam's son," he said with a slight bow. "Thank you for hosting me this evening." Bruce returned the bow. "The pleasure is entirely ours, Tanaka-san. Please meet my wife, Monica." I bowed slightly, smiling politely, saying nothing. Tanaka's eyes met mine for just a moment, sharp, assessing, before he nodded and returned the greeting in English. "It is very nice to meet you, Mrs. Adams." We sat. Bruce held my chair out, another gesture for show. A server appeared immediately with menus and water, explaining the omakase options in accented English. The conversation began in English, surface-level pleasantries that felt rehearsed. Tanaka complimented Bruce's choice of restaurant. They discussed Tanaka's hotel in Union Square, the weather in California compared to Tokyo, whether this was Bruce's first time hosting Japanese partners. "We've worked with several Asian companies," Bruce said, "but this partnership with Tech Fusion would be our most significant. We are very excited about the possibilities." "As are we," Tanaka replied. His English was actually quite good, much better than Bruce had implied, just slightly accented, perfectly grammatical. Then, as the first course arrived, delicate hamachi crudo with microgreens and yuzu, they naturally transitioned into Japanese. I picked up my chopsticks, took a small bite, and listened. Bruce's fluency was genuinely impressive, I had to admit. He spoke smoothly, confidently, clearly comfortable in the language. They discussed market projections, technical specifications for the integration, timelines for the partnership rollout. I understood every word but showed nothing, occasionally smiling when they glanced my way, playing my role perfectly. The second course arrived, grilled black cod with miso. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversations around us. I sipped my water, ate slowly and waited. Then Tanaka turned slightly toward me, saying something in Japanese I immediately caught. A polite inquiry about what I did for work. Bruce answered before I could even pretend not to understand. In Japanese, he said, "Oh, Monica works in marketing, but it's just a small company. Nothing serious, more like a hobby really, to keep her busy. She mainly takes care of our home." I kept my face neutral, but inside something twisted painfully. A hobby. I'd worked in marketing for 15 years, had managed campaigns that generated millions in revenue, built client relationships that lasted years. But to Bruce, my career was just a way to keep busy between household chores. Tanaka made a polite sound, "So the suka," and didn't press further. But I caught something in his expression. Discomfort, maybe, or disapproval. The dinner continued. More courses arrived, each beautifully presented. Wagyu beef, seasonal mushrooms, delicate tempura. I ate mechanically, barely tasting anything. My attention focused entirely on the conversation flowing in Japanese around me. Bruce was different when he spoke Japanese, more aggressive, more boastful. He exaggerated his role in various projects, took credit for team efforts, painted himself as more central to his company's success than he actually was. It wasn't egregious exactly, but it was noticeable. The Bruce speaking Japanese was an inflated version of the Bruce I knew. Then the conversation shifted in a way that made my blood run cold. Tanaka mentioned something about work-life balance, about the importance of family support in demanding careers. He spoke carefully, formally, the kind of respectful inquiry Japanese businessmen make to show interest without being intrusive. Bruce laughed. The sound made my stomach clench. In Japanese, his tone casual and dismissive, he said, "To be honest, my wife doesn't really understand the business world. She's content with her simple life. I handle all the important decisions, finances, career planning, investments. She's really just there for appearance." He paused to take a drink of sake, completely relaxed, completely confident I couldn't understand a word. It works perfectly for me because I don't have to deal with a wife who has big ambitions getting in my way. She keeps the house running, looks good at events like this, and doesn't demand too much attention. It's an ideal arrangement, really. I gripped my water glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Every word was a knife twisting deeper. Appearance, simple life, ideal arrangement. As if I were a hired employee rather than his wife. As if my only value was looking presentable and staying out of his way. Tanaka made a non-committal sound. I watched his face carefully. There was definitely discomfort there now, a tightness around his eyes. But he was too polite to challenge Bruce directly. Instead, he redirected slightly, asking about Bruce's long-term career goals. And that's when everything got so much worse. The executive VP position is essentially mine, Bruce continued in Japanese, his confidence absolute. The announcement should come in the next quarter. After that, I'm positioning myself for C-suite within 5 years. I've been very strategic about it, building the right relationships, delivering the right results. He leaned back slightly, warming to his subject. My wife doesn't know this yet, but I've been restructuring our finances, moving some assets around, setting up offshore accounts, smart financial planning, you understand? Accounts in the Cayman Islands, some investments in Singapore. If my career requires relocating or making major changes, I need the flexibility to move quickly without being tied down by joint accounts and having to get her signature on everything. My heart stopped. Offshore accounts, hidden assets, moving money without telling me. This wasn't just dismissiveness, this was financial betrayal. This was him systematically preparing to cut me out of our marital finances. Tanaka's discomfort was obvious now. He shifted in his seat, his response even more clipped. I see. But Bruce, emboldened by the sake and perhaps by Tanaka's continued politeness, wasn't done. Tanaka asked something about stress management, about how Bruce handled the pressure of his position. It was meant to be a throwaway question, the kind of small talk that fills gaps in conversation. Bruce's laugh was ugly. I have my outlets, he said in Japanese. There's someone at work, Jennifer Walsh. She's our CFO. We've been seeing each other for about 8 months now. The world tilted. I kept breathing, kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. My wife has no idea, obviously, Bruce continued, completely casual, as if discussing a golf game. Honestly, it's been great for me. Jennifer understands my world, my ambitions. She's going places too. We strategize together, talk about our futures. It's refreshing after coming home every night to someone who can't discuss anything more complex than what's for dinner or which Netflix show to watch. 8 months. While I'd been studying Japanese, practicing every night at the kitchen table, he'd been sleeping with his CFO. While I'd been making myself small and invisible to avoid his dismissiveness, he'd been building a whole other relationship with someone he considered his intellectual equal. I sat perfectly still. My face felt frozen in a pleasant smile. Inside, I was shattering into 1,000 pieces. But years of training in being quiet and agreeable and pleasant kept me in my chair, kept my hands from shaking visibly, kept the scream trapped in my throat. An affair, offshore accounts, plans to restructure finances without my knowledge, calling my career a hobby, reducing me to a decorative object who kept house and looked presentable at business dinners. 12 years of marriage, and this was how he saw me. This was what he said when he thought I couldn't understand. Tanaka was definitely uncomfortable now. I could see it in every line of his body, in the way he redirected the conversation firmly back to neutral business topics, technical specifications, implementation timelines, boring details that didn't require personal revelations. His responses to Bruce became more formal, more clipped. He was too polite, too professional to call Bruce out directly, but his disapproval was palpable, at least to me. The meal finally, mercifully ended. We said our goodbyes in the restaurant lobby. Tanaka bowed to both of us. It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Adams, he said in careful English, looking directly at me. I wish you well. Something in his eyes, a softness, a knowingness, made me wonder if he'd seen through my act, if he'd noticed the way I had held my wine glass when Bruce talked about me, the way my smile had frozen. But he said nothing more, just bowed again and walked toward the valet stand. The drive home was quiet. Bruce hummed along to the radio, completely pleased with himself. That went perfectly, he said as we merged onto 101 South. I think we're going to close this deal. Tanaka seemed really impressed. That's wonderful, I said. My voice sounded hollow to my own ears, like it was coming from underwater. Bruce didn't notice. At home, he kissed my cheek absently, a gesture so habitual it meant nothing, and told me he had emails to catch up on. He disappeared into his office, closing the door behind him. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, closed the door, and stood in the silence. For 10 minutes, I just stood there, staring at nothing, my mind replaying every word Bruce had said, every casual dismissal, every cruel revelation, the affair, the money, the contempt. Then I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I called Rachel. Rachel answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the late hour, 11:47 p.m. Monica, are you okay? My voice broke on the last word. I need a lawyer. What happened? And I told her everything. The dinner, the Japanese, every word Bruce had said, thinking I couldn't understand. The affair with Jennifer Walsh, the offshore accounts in the Caymans and Singapore, the way he dismissed my career as a hobby, called me simple, said I was there for appearance. 12 years of marriage, and I just discovered it had been a lie. Rachel listened without interrupting, her breathing the only sound on the other end. When I finally ran out of words, there was a long pause. Monica, she said, her voice shifting into the calm, authoritative tone of a lawyer taking control of a case. First, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me? I breathed in and out, in and out. Good. Second, you need to understand something. What he's doing with those offshore accounts, that's not just unethical. In California, that's financial fraud. If he's hiding marital assets in anticipation of divorce or just to maintain sole control, that's a serious violation. We can use that. I don't have proof, I said. It was just a conversation I overheard. Did you record the dinner? I felt incredibly stupid. No, I didn't think. I was just trying to process what I was hearing. That's okay. It's actually good you didn't. California is a two-party consent state for recordings. But here's what we're going to do. Her voice became businesslike, strategic. Starting tomorrow, you're going to gather documentation. Bank statements, tax returns, any financial records you can access. Take photos with your phone, forward yourself emails, anything you can find. If he's moving money, there will be a paper trail somewhere. We'll find it. Rachel, I'm scared. I know, honey, but you're also smart and strong. And you just proved that by learning an entire language without him knowing. You can do this, and you won't be alone. I'm going to help you. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back at the restaurant. Rage, betrayal, grief for the marriage I thought I had, fear of what came next. But underneath it all, something else was growing, something cold and clear and determined. I wasn't going to be the decorative wife anymore. I wasn't going to be dismissed and diminished and cheated on while smiling pleasantly at business dinners. I was going to take back control of my life, even if it meant burning down everything I'd built to do it. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Bruce barely noticed, just grunted acknowledgement as he left for the office, already on his phone before he reached his car. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I started searching. Bruce kept files in his home office. Organized, meticulous, everything labeled and filed. He was compulsively neat about paperwork, a trait that was about to work in my favor. I found the file cabinet key in the back of his desk drawer, hidden under old business cards and expired warranties. For the next 4 hours, I photographed everything. Bank statements going back 3 years, tax returns, investment account statements, property deeds. I uploaded everything to a private cloud drive Rachel had set up for me the night before, using a password Bruce would never guess. Tokyo 2010, the year I'd been an exchange student. And there it was. 2 accounts I'd never seen before, both showing regular transfers. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, sometimes $12,000. Over the past 8 months, approximately $50,000 had been moved to a bank in the Cayman Islands. Another account in Singapore showed $75,000. Our joint savings account had decreased by exactly $125,000 over the same period. Money we'd saved together, that I'd contributed to from my hobby job, slowly drained without my knowledge. I felt sick, but I kept photographing. Rachel had told me to be thorough. I found emails too. Bruce printed important correspondence, another old-fashioned habit that was now damning him. Communications about investment properties I didn't know existed. Rental properties in Oakland and San Jose, all titled in his name only, not in our community property. And then I found the emails to Jennifer. He'd been careless, printing exchanges probably to reference financial figures or dates. But the content was devastating. Can't wait to see you Thursday. The Rosewood again? Last night was incredible. You make me feel alive in ways I forgot were possible. Once I've handled the Monica situation, we can stop sneaking around. I'm tired of hiding what we have. The Monica situation, that's what I'd become. A problem to be handled. I photographed every email, every bank statement, every document I could find. By the time I finished, I had over 300 images stored safely in the cloud, backed up in 3 different locations. Then I carefully returned everything to exactly where I'd found it, locked the file cabinet, and put the key back in the desk drawer. That afternoon, I met Rachel at her office in San Francisco. "This is good," Rachel said, scrolling through the images on her laptop. "This is really good, Monica. He's been incredibly stupid." We were in her conference room, door closed, Rachel's paralegal bringing us coffee we weren't drinking. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now, we build the case, but we need more than documents. We need to confirm the affair independently, and we need to trace the full extent of the offshore accounts. I'm going to bring in a private investigator, Marcus Thompson. He's the best. Former FBI, specializes in financial fraud and infidelity cases. How much will that cost?" "He's expensive, about $200 an hour, and this kind of investigation typically takes several months." I thought about my savings account, the one Bruce didn't monitor closely because it only had my hobby money in it. 15 years of careful saving, about $35,000. I can cover it. Good. And Monica, this is going to be hard. You'll have to live with him, act normal, while we gather evidence. Can you do that? I thought about Bruce kissing my cheek absently last night. The way he'd hummed in the car, pleased with himself. The casual cruelty of every word he'd said about me in Japanese. I can do it. I met Marcus Thompson 2 days later at a coffee shop in Oakland, far from anyone who might know Bruce or me. He was in his early 60s, with grey hair and the kind of calm, assessing eyes that missed nothing. Rachel filled me in on the basics, he said. Husband's having an affair with a coworker, hiding marital assets offshore. You overheard him admitting to it during a business dinner. In Japanese. He didn't know I understood. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's a new one. Usually people just check phone records. He pulled out a tablet. Okay, here's how this works. I'm going to surveil your husband, document his movements, confirm the affair, get photographic evidence if possible. Meanwhile, I have a contact, Lisa Rodriguez, who's a forensic accountant. She'll trace the offshore money, find out exactly how much he's hidden and where. How long will this take? Realistically, 4 to 6 months for a solid case, maybe longer if he's been careful. He studied me. Mrs. Adams, I'm going to be direct with you. This process is going to be emotionally brutal. You'll watch your husband lie to you every day. You'll see evidence of him with another woman. You'll have to smile and pretend everything's normal. A lot of clients can't handle it. They confront too early and the case falls apart. I won't confront him, I said. Not until we have everything. You sure about that? I thought about sitting at that restaurant table, listening to Bruce call me simple, hearing him laugh about how naive I was, how I'd never checked the financial records because I didn't understand them. I'm sure. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of my life. I lived a double life. During the day, I went to work, managed campaigns, attended meetings. In the evening, I came home, cooked dinner, asked Bruce about his day, and smiled when he gave me one-word answers. Every touch made my skin crawl. Every "I love you," he said, out of habit felt like poison. But I said it back. I played my role perfectly. Meanwhile, I gathered evidence. Friday mornings, when Bruce left for the office, I went through his things. I photographed credit card statements showing charges at hotels I'd never stayed in. The Rosewood Sand Hill, the Four Seasons Palo Alto, jewelry, purchases from Tiffany that I'd never received, dinners at expensive restaurants. On nights, he told me he was working late. Marcus's surveillance confirmed what I already knew. Photos arrived via encrypted email. Bruce and Jennifer Walsh entering hotel rooms together. 4 separate occasions documented over 6 weeks. Jennifer was 32, blonde, attractive in that polished corporate way. They met for lunches that lasted 3 hours. Dinner dates in the South Bay at places Bruce had told me were client meetings. The forensic accountant, Lisa Rodriguez, traced the money trail. Weekly meetings at Rachel's office, Lisa spreading spreadsheets across the conference table, showing me exactly how Bruce had been systematically draining our joint accounts. It's actually impressive, Lisa said during one meeting, her tone clinical. He's been careful not to take too much at once, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts. But over 18 months, he's moved approximately $125,000 to offshore accounts, plus another $200,000 into investment properties titled through a shell LLC. Total hidden marital assets, approximately $325,000. Can we recover it? Rachel asked. Absolutely. This is California, community property state. Monica is entitled to half of everything, including assets he tried to hide. In fact, the court tends to look very unfavorably on spouses who hide assets. He could end up owing her more than half as a penalty. The evidence mounted: emails, bank records, hotel receipts, surveillance photos. Every week, the case grew stronger, but the emotional toll was devastating. I lost weight, 12 pounds in 6 weeks. Couldn't sleep. I'd lie next to Bruce while he snored, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd been so blind. At work, colleagues noticed. "Monica, are you okay? You seem different." "Just stressed," I'd say. "You know how it is." My Japanese lessons with Dr. Kim became my only refuge. The 1 hour a week where I could focus on something other than the slow motion collapse of my marriage. "Monica," Dr. Kim said one evening, 4 weeks into the investigation, "you've been distracted lately. Is everything all right?" I felt tears prick my eyes. "I can't talk about it yet, but thank you for this, for giving me this gift." She looked at me with concern, but didn't press. "Whatever you're going through, you're stronger than you know." Then, in week 16, Marcus called with news that changed everything. "Monica, we need to meet. Now." His voice had an urgency I hadn't heard before. We met at the same coffee shop in Oakland. Marcus slid a folder across the table, his expression grim. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside were medical records. I didn't understand at first. Patient information, doctor's appointments, prescription records. Then I saw the name, Jennifer Walsh, and the notes from her OBGYN. 8 weeks pregnant, father listed as Bruce Adams. The coffee shop tilted. I stood up abruptly, walked outside, and vomited in the parking lot. Marcus followed, handing me a bottle of water he'd grabbed from inside. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know this makes it worse." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Bruce wasn't just having an affair. He was starting a whole new family. With Jennifer Walsh, while still married to me. Everything clicked into place. The offshore accounts, the hidden properties. He'd been building an exit strategy for over a year, planning to leave me with nothing while he started fresh with Jennifer and their baby. "How long has he known?" I finally managed to ask. According to the medical records, she told him 2 weeks ago. She's about 8 weeks along now, so conception was probably early September. Right before the dinner at Hashiri, right before he'd invited me to play the decorative wife while he discussed his plans with Tanaka. Marcus drove me back to Rachel's office. Emergency meeting. Rachel, Marcus, Lisa, and me around the conference table. "This changes the timeline," Rachel said. "Jennifer's pregnancy will start showing in a few weeks. Once it's obvious, Bruce might move faster, either to hide more assets or to file for divorce himself. We can't wait the full 6 months we planned." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying we need to strike now. We have enough evidence. The affair is documented. The offshore accounts are traced. The hidden properties are confirmed. If we wait, we risk him moving more money or disappearing assets we haven't found yet." Lisa nodded. "Agreed. He's been methodical so far, but the pregnancy adds pressure. Men in his position tend to make mistakes when they panic." "How long do we need?" I asked. Rachel looked at her calendar. 2 weeks. I need 2 weeks to finalize the financial discovery, prepare the filing, and coordinate with the company's HR department. "The company?" I looked up. "Monica, Bruce is having an affair with his CFO. That's a massive ethics violation, especially since they both hold executive positions. It's a conflict of interest, and he's been using company resources corporate credit cards for hotels, charging romantic dinners as business expenses. We can report this to his company simultaneously with filing for divorce. He'll lose his job. Rachel looked at me directly. Yes, he probably will. Is that okay with you? I thought about Bruce telling Tanaka that I was too simple to understand his world, that I was there for appearance, that the arrangement worked perfectly because I didn't demand too much attention. I thought about him planning to leave me penniless while he started a new life with Jennifer and their baby. It's more than okay, I said quietly. When do we start? The plan was simple, brutal, but simple. Rachel filed the divorce papers electronically on Thursday afternoon, December 14th. Friday morning at 9 o'clock a.m., an evidence package would be delivered to Linda Foster, the HR director at Bruce's company. At 9:30 a.m., a process server would hand Bruce the divorce papers in his office. I would be at Rachel's office, phone off, safely removed from the immediate fallout. Thursday night was our last dinner together, though Bruce didn't know it. He came home early, rare enough that I almost panicked, worried he'd somehow found out. But no, he was just in a good mood. Thought I'd cook tonight, he said, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. Pasta okay? I almost laughed at the absurdity. Our last meal together, and he was making pasta, completely oblivious to what was coming. We ate at the kitchen table. Bruce talked about a project at work, some technical issue I didn't understand and didn't try to. I pushed pasta around my plate and counted down the hours. You're quiet tonight, he said. Everything okay? Just tired, I replied. He accepted this without question. He always did. That night, I barely slept. Bruce snored beside me, peaceful and content, while I stared at the ceiling and waited for dawn. Friday morning, I left for work at my usual time. Bruce kissed my cheek absently, already scrolling through his phone. Have a good day, he said. You too. I drove straight to Rachel's office in San Francisco, arriving at 7:30 a.m. Rachel was already there, looking sharp in a charcoal suit, ready for battle. How are you feeling? She asked, handing me coffee I couldn't drink. Terrified, but ready. We waited in her conference room. At 8:50 a.m., Rachel received confirmation. HR had the package. At 9:15, my phone, still on for now, started ringing. Bruce's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer, Rachel said. I turned it off. At 9:45, Rachel's phone rang. She answered, listened, then looked at me. It's done. Paper served. Bruce and Jennifer have both been placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. I nodded, unable to speak. Over the next hour, my phone accumulated voicemails. Rachel listened to each one, documenting them. The first was confused. Monica, what's happening? There are lawyers here, call me. The second, angry. What the fuck did you do? Call me right now. The third, desperate. Please, we need to talk about this. You're making a huge mistake. By the 15th, he was cycling between rage and pleading. Then Jennifer called. Rachel played it on speaker. You vindictive bitch! Jennifer's voice was shrill with fury. You're ruining his life. We're in love. You need to let him go and stop being such a... Rachel stopped the recording. Keep that. Shows consciousness of guilt. I needed to get my belongings from the house. Rachel insisted on a police escort. Officer Martinez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, agreed to accompany us Saturday afternoon. Bruce's car was in the driveway when we arrived. My hands shook as I unlocked the door. Officer Martinez entered first, Rachel behind her, me last. Bruce was on the couch and he looked destroyed. Unshaven, clothes rumpled, empty beer bottles on the coffee table. He stood when he saw me, swaying slightly. "Monica," his voice cracked. "Please, we need to talk. We have nothing to discuss." I moved toward the stairs. "The company put me on leave. I could lose everything." He took a step toward me. Officer Martinez shifted, positioning herself between us. "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "Why are you doing this?" The desperation in his voice was almost pathetic. I stopped on the stairs, turned to face him. "Do you remember the dinner with Tanaka?" He looked confused. "What?" "October 27th, Hashiri restaurant. You spoke Japanese." Recognition dawned slowly in his eyes, followed by horror. "You talked about me," I continued, my voice steady now. "About our marriage, about Jennifer, about the offshore accounts. You don't speak Japanese." But his face was white. He knew. I switched to perfect, fluent Japanese. "See, hari honnan gyu ga ryuchou ni hanasemasu. Anata ga watashi ni tsuite yutta koto zenbu kikimashita. I speak Japanese fluently. I heard everything you said about me." Bruce sank back onto the couch as if his legs had given out. "How long?" he whispered. 3 years. I'm actually fluent. You're intermediate at best." I paused. That night, I understood every word, every insult, every lie, every plan you made to leave me with nothing. "We can fix this," he said desperately. "Counseling. I'll end things with Jennifer. Jennifer's pregnant." His face registered shock. Not at the pregnancy, but that I knew. "I know everything, Bruce. The offshore accounts, the hidden properties, the affair that's been going on for 8 months. I have documentation of all of it." "You're my wife," he said, as if that meant something. "No, I was your convenient decoration, your simple wife who was there for appearance, who kept house and looked pretty at business dinners, your hobby wife who couldn't understand anything more complex than what's for dinner. I never meant—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word." I felt tears threatening, but pushed them back. "But you were right about one thing. I didn't understand your world, because your world is built on lies and contempt and ego, and I'm done being small for you." I walked upstairs and packed. The divorce took 18 months. Bruce hired Patrick Morrison, an aggressive attorney known for protecting high net worth individuals in contentious divorces. Patrick immediately went on the offensive, filing counter motions claiming I was mentally unstable, that the divorce filing was frivolous, that the offshore accounts were legitimate investment strategies Bruce had planned to tell me about. The company investigation concluded after 3 months. Bruce was terminated for cause. Ethics violations, including the affair with a subordinate, misuse of corporate resources, and falsifying expense reports. Jennifer was also terminated. Neither received severance. The news spread quickly through the industry. Bruce's reputation was shattered. He found a new job eventually, a mid-level position at a smaller company. His salary dropped from $250,000 to $120,000. Jennifer had the baby in June, a girl. They got married in a small courthouse ceremony. No one from Bruce's former life attended. The legal battle was exhausting. Depositions, financial discovery, mediation attempts that went nowhere. Patrick Morrison fought every point. but the evidence was overwhelming. Then, 12 months into the divorce process, something unexpected happened. I received a LinkedIn message from Tanaka Hiroshi. Mrs. Adams, I hope this message finds you well. I heard about your divorce proceedings. I would like to speak with you, if you're willing. I may have information that could assist your case. I showed it to Rachel immediately. Could be a trap, she said cautiously. Bruce might have asked him to reach out. I don't think so, I said. There was something at that dinner, the way he looked at me when we left. I think he knew. We arranged a conference call, Rachel, me, and Tanaka. Mrs. Adams, Tanaka's voice was warm, respectful. First, I must apologize. That dinner, what your husband said about you, was deeply dishonorable. I should have said something. You couldn't have known I understood, I said. Actually, he paused. I suspected you did. Your micro-expressions when he spoke about you. The way you held your wine glass. I have been doing business for 30 years, Mrs. Adams. I have learned to read people. Rachel leaned forward. Mr. Tanaka, why are you calling? Because I recorded the dinner. Silence. It is my practice to record important business meetings for note-taking purposes. I have the full audio of everything Mr. Adams said that evening, including his admissions regarding offshore accounts, the affair, and his plans to hide marital assets. Rachel's eyes widened. Would you be willing to provide this recording? Yes. What he said disturbed me greatly. It is not how honorable businessmen conduct themselves. And Mrs. Adams deserves justice. 15 months after I filed for divorce, we sat in a conference room for a mandatory settlement conference. Judge Wilson presided, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd seen every divorce trick in the book. Bruce sat across from me with Patrick Morrison. He looked older, grayer, defeated. Patrick opened with his standard offer. My client proposes a 40-60 split of documented marital assets, with 40% going to Mrs. Adams, plus $2,000 monthly spousal support for 2 years. Unacceptable, Rachel said calmly. Mrs. Adams was employed throughout the marriage, Patrick argued. She doesn't require... Shall I play the recording? Rachel interrupted. Patrick frowned. What recording? Rachel set a small speaker on the table and pressed play. Bruce's voice filled the room, speaking Japanese. The English subtitles scrolled across Rachel's tablet screen. She's really just there for appearance. I've been moving assets around, setting up offshore accounts. My wife has no idea. Bruce's face went white as his own words played back. Jennifer Walsh's name. The Cayman Islands accounts. Everything. Patrick requested a private conference with Bruce. They stepped into the hallway. 20 minutes later, they returned. Patrick looked like he'd aged 10 years. We accept community property division, 50-50 of all assets, including those in offshore accounts and previously undisclosed properties. $3,500 monthly spousal support for 36 months. Full financial disclosure within 48 hours. Rachel glanced at me. I nodded. Agreed, Rachel said. Judge Wilson looked at Bruce over her reading glasses. Mr. Adams, you're fortunate this didn't result in criminal prosecution. Mrs. Adams, I wish you well. Bruce tried one last time as we signed the papers. Monica, I'm sorry. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. I signed my name. But I'm not sorry this happened because it freed me. I walked out without looking back. The settlement gave me $162,000 plus ongoing support. I found a bright, modern apartment in Palo Alto with floor-to-ceiling windows and space that was entirely mine. A week after the divorce finalized, Tanaka emailed me. Tech Fusion was opening a US office in San Francisco. They needed a director of cross-cultural marketing, someone who understood both American business and Japanese culture, someone who spoke fluent Japanese. The interview was conducted entirely in Japanese. I discussed market analysis, cultural bridge building, strategic positioning. Tanaka's team was impressed. They offered me the position the same day, $180,000 base salary plus equity. I accepted. That was 3 years ago. I'm now VP of International Marketing, making $240,000 a year. I've traveled to Tokyo 8 times, built a team I'm proud of, became someone I respect. I still study Japanese, but now for pleasure. I teach weekend classes to beginners. Find something that makes you feel alive, I tell my students. I dated someone seriously for 18 months, Daniel, an architect. It ended amicably. We wanted different things. I'm single now and I'm content. Complete on my own. I started learning Mandarin, took up photography, finally, traveled solo through Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. I'm collecting experiences, not just years. Through the grapevine, I heard Bruce and Jennifer are struggling. The baby is 2 now. They live in a modest rental in San Jose. Jennifer had to return to work. Bruce's career never recovered. I don't think about him much anymore. Sometimes I remember that dinner at Hashiri, the worst and best night of my life. Worst because I heard truths that shattered everything I believed. Best because it finally pushed me to act. I learned that making yourself small for someone else is the slowest form of disappearing. I stopped disappearing. And I started living.